My heart was beating so hard I was certain Marcus could hear it from across the room. I lay there in our California king bed, fighting to keep my breathing steady and slow, watching through eyelids that were barely open as my husband of 7 years carefully, expertly, pried up the wooden floorboards near our bedroom window. This wasn't the Marcus I knew. This wasn't the gentleman who brought me a nutrient-packed smoothie every single morning and kissed my forehead before I left for my law firm. The person crouched on our bedroom floor moved with the agility and precision of someone who had performed this exact task many times before. His hands, the same hands that held mine when we said our vows, worked quickly and silently, lifting each board without making a sound. What I saw next made my blood run cold. Hidden beneath our bedroom floor was a dark metal box, about the size of a shoebox. Marcus opened it like he was handling a sacred relic. And even in the dim light filtering in from our hallway, I could see it was packed with tight bundles of papers, stacks of photographs, and what looked like several small booklets, passports. Multiple passeports. I wanted to scream. I wanted to leap out of the bed and demand he tell me what this was, who he was. But something deep in my gut, a new and primal instinct, told me to stay perfectly still, to keep pretending I was unconscious from whatever he had been secretly putting in my nightly health smoothie. Because yes, I was right about the smoothie. The sharp, metallic aftertaste I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. The way I'd been falling into such impossibly deep sleeps that I couldn't remember anything until my alarm blared the next morning. The strange, unsettling feeling that things in our house had been moved while I slept. Marcus had been drugging me, but seeing him now, watching him reverently flip through documents and photographs from that hidden box, I realized the sleeping pills, or whatever they were just the beginning. This was something much bigger, much more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. Lying in my own bed, paralyzed by fear of my own husband. 3 hours earlier, I had been sitting at our granite kitchen island, staring at the tall glass of green smoothie Marcus had just placed in front of me. It was our routine. Every night at 9:00 p.m., Marcus would blend me his special stress relief smoothie while I finished up work on my laptop. He always used the same tall green glass, always added a scoop of that special supplement powder, and always waited nearby, watching, until I finished drinking it. Long day at the firm. "Love?" he asked, settling onto the stool across from me. His dark eyes looked concerned, carrying the same eyes that had looked at me with what I believed was adoration on our wedding day. "Yeah. The Reynolds acquisition is giving us trouble," I replied, wrapping my hands around the cold glass. The smoothie smelled normal, like kale, pineapple, and ginger. But lately, I'd been noticing that bitter, chemical undertone, like crushed-up medicine mixed with fruit. "You should drink up and get some rest," Marcus said, and I thought I caught something in his voice. Eagerness. "You've been pushing yourself too hard lately." I lifted the glass to my lips, but instead of drinking, I just pretended to take a long sip. Marcus was watching me intently, and when I didn't actually swallow, I saw a tiny, impatient frown cross his face before vanishing. "Is something wrong with it?" he asked, his voice smooth as silk. "No. It's fine. Just really cold," I lied, taking another fake sip. This time, I let a tiny bit touch the back of my tongue, and there it was. That harsh, metallic taste that definitely didn't belong in a health smoothie. My hands started shaking, just slightly, after weeks of suspicion, of thinking I was losing my mind. I finally had proof that something was very, very wrong. "I'm just going to jump into my office for a second," Marcus said, standing up. "Finish your drink while I'm gone." The moment he left the kitchen, I rushed to the sink, my heart pounding, and poured the entire viscous, green liquid down the drain. I quickly rinsed the glass, then refilled it with a bit of tap water and a small scoop of my normal protein powder. shaking it just enough to create a similar foam. My pulse was hammering in my ears as I heard his footsteps coming back down the hallway. "All done," I said, holding up the nearly empty glass when he returned. "Good girl," he said, and something about the casual, proprietary way he said it made my skin crawl. "You should head to bed soon. You look exhausted." He was right. I did look exhausted. But tonight, I wasn't going to let whatever drug he'd been slipping me knock me unconscious. Tonight, I was going to find out what my husband was really doing while I slept. I went through our normal bedtime routine, brushing my teeth and changing into pajamas while Marcus watched a financial news channel downstairs. When I climbed into bed, I made sure to leave our bedroom door slightly ajar, just enough so I could hear him moving around the house. Around 1:30. I heard him turn off the television and walk upstairs. I quickly shut my eyes and forced my breathing to become deep and regular, mimicking the sound of my chemically induced sleep. Marcus stood in our doorway for what felt like an eternity, just watching me. Then, he whispered my name. "Clara. Clara. Are you awake?" I didn't respond. I kept my breathing steady, my body completely limp and still. He said my name again, louder this time. "Clara." Still nothing from me. Finally, I heard him walk away, but he didn't get into bed. Instead, his footsteps went back downstairs, and I heard him moving around in his home office. For the next hour, I lay there, rigid with tension, listening to Marcus make phone calls. I couldn't make out the specific words, but his voice sounded different, sharper, more serious, more businesslike than I'd ever heard it. And sometimes, he seemed to be speaking with a faint accent, something I couldn't quite place. Maybe Eastern European. Around midnight, Marcus came back upstairs. I heard him pause outside our bedroom again, then quietly push the door open wider. My heart was beating so fast. I was terrified he could see my chest moving under the covers. But I forced myself to remain perfectly still. That's when Marcus did something that changed everything. Instead of getting into bed beside me like he had every night for 7 years, he walked silently over to the window side of our room and knelt down on the floor. I heard a soft, scraping sound, like wood sliding against wood. I risked opening my eyes just a tiny, imperceptible crack. Marcus was prying up the floorboards. And now here I was, watching my husband, the man I loved, the man I had built my life with, pull out a metal box filled with secrets that could destroy everything I thought I knew about him. He was holding up photographs now, and even though I couldn't see them clearly, I could tell they were pictures of women. Different women. Women who weren't me. Marcus set the photos aside and picked up one of the passport booklets. He opened it and studied the page, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Using the phone's flashlight, he compared something in the passport to something on his screen. That's when I saw his face clearly in the bright, white light. And what I saw there terrified me more than anything else that had happened that night. Marcus was smiling. It was not the warm, loving smile I knew. This was cold, calculating, and triumphant. It was the smile of someone who was immensely pleased with their own dark cleverness. It was the smile of a complete and total stranger. As I watched him carefully place everything back in the box and replace the floorboards, one thought kept running through my mind, over and over. Who was the man I married, and what had he been planning to do to me 3 weeks earlier? I was just Clara Mitchell, a senior partner at my law firm who thought her biggest problem was navigating the complex Reynolds acquisition. I had no idea that my entire life was meticulously constructed on a foundation of lies. It started on a Tuesday night in early April. I remember because I had just gotten home from a grueling 14-hour day at the office, and Marcus was already in the kitchen preparing dinner. The smell of his roasted chicken and rosemary potatoes filled our pristine Denver home, and everything felt perfectly, wonderfully normal. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Marcus asked, stirring something in a pot while reaching for my favorite tall green glass. I'm trying a new smoothie recipe tonight. Special adaptogens for stress. Even after 7 years of marriage, he was still so thoughtful. He learned when we first started dating that I was prone to work-related anxiety, and he'd appointed himself my personal nutritionist ever since. That night, I drank my smoothie while we discussed our plans for the weekend, but about halfway through the conversation, I started feeling incredibly drowsy, my thoughts turning to fog. I think I need to go to bed, I mumbled, my words feeling thick and heavy in my mouth. Of course. Love, you've had a long day, Marcus said, helping me up from the couch. I'll be up in a little while. I barely remembered walking upstairs. The next thing I knew, it was morning and my alarm was blaring. I felt groggy and deeply confused, like I was surfacing from a medical anesthetic. Not a night's sleep. Morning. Beautiful, Marcus said from beside me. He was already dressed in his workout gear, which was strange. He usually slept later than I did. What time did you come to bed? I asked, rubbing my temples. Oh, around 11, he said casually. You were sleeping so soundly. I didn't want to wake you. Something felt off. I stumbled to the bathroom and noticed my phone was on the nightstand, but I could have sworn I'd left it charging on the dresser. And my laptop, which I always left open on my desk, was closed. Marcus, I called out. Did you move my stuff last night? What stuff? He called back from downstairs. My phone and laptop. They're not where I left them. You were pretty tired. Clara, you probably just forgot where you put them. Maybe he was right. I had been exhausted, working long hours on the Reynolds case. It made sense that I might be more forgetful than usual. But over the next few days, it kept happening. Every night, I would drink my stress relief smoothie, fall into that impossibly deep sleep, and wake up feeling like I'd been unconscious rather than just asleep. And every morning, I would find small things moved. My purse would be in a slightly different position. My work papers on the desk would be shuffled. Once, I found my laptop warm to the touch in the morning, even though I was sure I'd shut it down the night before. I think I'm losing my mind, I told my best friend, Chloe, during lunch the following week. We were at our usual cafe near the courthouse, and I was picking at a salad, my stomach in knots. I keep thinking someone's been going through my stuff while I sleep, but that's crazy. Right, it's just Marcus and me in the house. Chloe frowned. What kind of stuff? My laptop. My purse. Work documents. Little things. And I've been sleeping so deeply lately. Like, David could probably set off a car alarm in our bedroom and I wouldn't wake up. It's not normal. Chloe, I've never been that heavy of a sleeper. Chloe put down her fork and looked at me seriously. Clara, when did this start? About 3 weeks ago, right around the time this Reynolds deal got intense. And you're sure nothing else has changed? No new medications, no changes in your routine? I shook my head, then stopped. Well, Marcus has been making me this new health smoothie every night. But he's always doing that. It's not new. Something flickered across Chloe's face. What I asked? Probably nothing, she said carefully. But maybe you should pay attention to how you feel after you drink the smoothie. Just to rule it out. The idea came to me during another sleepless lunch. I need to know for sure. I told Chloe, I want to record myself sleeping. Set up my phone to film the bedroom. Clara, Actually, that's really smart, she said. That evening, I set my phone up on the dresser, angled at the bed. I made sure it was plugged in and started recording just before Marcus brought up my smoothie. I forced myself to drink the entire thing. That bitter, chemical taste making me want to gag. The familiar, heavy drowsiness pulled at my eyelids. I'm so tired, I mumbled. Sleep well. Love, Marcus said, kissing my forehead. When I woke up the next morning, Marcus was already gone. He'd left a note about an early client breakfast. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone. The screen was black. I tapped it and a notification popped up. Storage full. The recording had stopped after only 2 hours and 14 minutes. I scrubbed through the footage. It just showed me tossing and turning for 30 minutes. And then stillness. I lay there, unmoving, for the rest of the recording. He hadn't come up. Nothing had happened. A wave of profound shame washed over me. I was wrong. I was a terrible, paranoid wife. Marcus was kind and loving. And I was accusing him of drugging me. I felt sick with guilt. But that night, Marcus was too attentive. Feeling better today. Love, you slept so soundly. His smile seemed forced. The doubt, that cold little seed, returned. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd be capable of. I called a private investigator my firm sometimes used for corporate espionage cases and asked for a recommendation. That evening, I installed a sophisticated, untraceable keylogger onto my own work laptop. I felt disgusting. A profound violation of trust. If I'm wrong, I whispered to the empty room, I'm the worst person alive. But if I'm right? This led directly to the night I've already described. The night I poured the smoothie down the drain. The night I faked my sleep. The night I watched him open the box. The next morning, after he kissed me goodbye, I waited until his car was down the street before I ran to my office, my hands trembling so badly I could barely type. I opened the keylogger file. It was all there. The log showed him opening my laptop. He knew my password. He spent nearly an hour going through my files. He had used his phone to photograph my driver's license and credit cards from my purse. He had accessed my online banking. He had copied my secure files for the Reynolds acquisition. And then, the keylogger captured something the video never could. He opened a new, encrypted email client. He started a draft. The log captured every keystroke. To Zurich contact. Subject Kestrel. The body read Project Kestrel timeline moving to final phase. Asset transfer confirmed. Thursday. She suspects nothing. This will be cleaner than Seattle. The software had also recorded the audio from the phone calls I'd heard muffled through the floor. I plugged in my headphones and turned the volume all the way up. The timeline is still good. Marcus's new, accented voice said, I should have everything I need within the next 48 hours. No. She doesn't suspect anything. The medication is working perfectly. Yes. I understand the risks. But this one is different. She has access to more resources than the others. The others, Kestrel, Zurich, Seattle. The man I'd been married to for 7 years. The man I loved completely. Hadn't just been looking through my things. He was a professional. He was planning to steal everything. And cleaner than Seattle sounded terrifyingly final. I called Chloe and asked her to meet me for coffee. My voice was shaking so badly, I could barely form the words. I have the proof. I told her. And Chloe. It's bad. It's so bad. We met at Riverside Park, about 20 minutes from our neighborhood. She was sitting on a bench overlooking the South Platte River, her face etched with worry. I sat down, my legs feeling weak, and opened my laptop. I didn't just show her the keylogger files. I played her the audio of his phone calls. I showed her the email draft Project Kestrel. Zurich. Cleaner than Seattle. Chloe, who had spent 5 years as a digital forensics investigator before switching to corporate security, grew paler with every word she read. Clara. This isn't just weird behavior, she said when I finished. This is criminal. He's drugging you and stealing your professional and personal information. But this. Kestrel. Zurich. She was already typing on her own phone. Chloe didn't waste any time. She called in sick to work and spent the entire day digging into Marcus Rain. She called me that afternoon. We need to meet. Somewhere private, Now, I told Marcus I was going grocery shopping and met her back at the same park. She was holding a thick folder in her lap. "Clara, sit down," she said, her voice grim. "What I'm about to tell you is going to be really hard to hear." She opened the folder. "I started with the basics," she said, and her voice, all business. Marcus's employment history, his social security number, his college records. She handed me the first page. It was a printout from the website of Cascade Software Solutions, the company where Marcus claimed to be a developer. "I called them this morning," Chloe said. "They have never had an employee by that name." "That's impossible," I whispered. "He goes to work. He has paychecks. He talks about his coworkers. He has an LLC that he funnels money into, probably from your accounts, and pays himself. It's a shell. Keep listening." She showed me another printout. I ran a background check. "Clara, his social security number doesn't match his name. It belongs to a man who died in Ohio in 2011. And look at this. His Facebook, his LinkedIn. They were all created exactly 8 years ago." My hands were trembling. "We met 8 years ago." "Exactly. He created his entire online identity 1 year before he met you. I had a contact at the DMV look up his driver's license. The photo matches, but the license was issued 8 years ago as a replacement for a lost license. There's no record of Marcus Rain having a license in Colorado, or any surrounding state. Before that date, it's like he didn't exist before he met you." I felt like I was going to be sick. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Chloe said, her voice firm, "that the man you married has been living under a false identity since before he even knew you. And based on that phone call, I don't think you're his first. The others," I whispered. "Yes, but this is where it gets worse." She pulled out one last piece of paper. "You gave me Project Kestrel and Zurich. I ran them through some old databases. Zurich flagged a known international money laundering hub. But Kestrel. Project Kestrel is an internal flag. It's connected to a high-profile missing person case. A woman from Seattle named Alicia Walsh." "Seattle," I breathed, remembering the email. Cleaner than Seattle. She was a marketing executive. Disappeared without a trace 2 years ago. Left behind a successful career and a house that was later found cleaned out of all valuables. "Oh my God," I said, the words catching in my throat. "Victim of what?" Chloe hesitated. "Clara. People who go to this much trouble to steal identities, who have escape routes through Zurich and connections to missing persons. They aren't planning to just walk away quietly. They're planning to disappear completely, and they can't afford to leave witnesses behind." The implication hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't just stealing from me. He was planning to kill me. "First," Chloe said, standing up and pulling me with her. "We're going to the police. Right now. What if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm just a paranoid wife? You have evidence. Clara. The keylogger files. The audio. The background check. And Project Kestrel. That's more than enough." Detective Miles at the Denver Police Department was skeptical. Just as I'd feared, he listened with a patient, tired expression as I explained my husband was drugging me. "Ma'am, we're married. Technically, isn't my stuff his stuff. 2. What's the actual crime?" "The crime," I said, my voice shaking but gaining strength, "is this." I plugged my laptop into the conference room monitor. I played the audio of Marcus's phone calls. I showed him the keylogger data. I showed him the email draft. When I finished, Chloe spoke. "And I'm a forensic investigator. Detective. His identity is fake. His SSN belongs to a dead man. And Project Kestrel." Detective Miles, who had been leaning back in his chair, suddenly sat bolt upright. What did you say? Project Kestrel. Chloe repeated. And a contact in Zurich. He mentioned Seattle, in reference to a cleanup. Miles stared at us. His skepticism gone. Replaced by a chilling seriousness. He picked up his phone. Get me Agent Riley at the FBI. Now. Tell him it's about Kestrel. He covered the receiver and looked at me. Ma'am, Project Kestrel is the FBI's internal file name for an active investigation into a suspected serial killer. Someone who targets wealthy professional women, marries them, liquidates their assets, and then they disappear. The Seattle victim was Alicia Walsh. My entire world collapsed in that moment. He's planning to kill me on Thursday. I whispered. That's what the timeline meant. We need to catch him in the act. Detective Miles said, his voice hard. Clara, I know this is terrifying, but we need you to go home. We need you to confront him tonight. We'll wire you up and have officers positioned around the house. What if he tries to kill me early? I asked. My hands shaking so violently, I had to hide them under the table. We won't let that happen. Miles said, the moment he makes any threatening move, or the moment you give the distress signal, we'll be there. That evening felt like the longest of my life. This was it. The night from my flash forward. The night I'd seen him with the box. But this time I was a willing participant in my own paralysis. Chloe was parked 3 blocks away, in a high-tech surveillance van borrowed from her firm. Detective Miles had 2 unmarked cars in the area. But he'd been clear. We need concrete evidence he's accessing that box. And we need to know what's in it. We can't move until we're sure. The signal was my text. I had to wait until Marcus was asleep. Then I would text Chloe and Miles. I went through my normal routine. My heart pounding, a violent rhythm against my ribs. When 9:00 p.m. came, Marcus brought me the smoothie. I had practiced this all afternoon, how to fake drinking. Letting the thick liquid pool in my cheeks. Then swallowing just enough to taste the bitter, metallic poison. But not enough to knock me unconscious. Drink up. Love, he said, watching me more intently than usual. You're going to need your rest. A chill ran down my spine. I'm feeling tired already, I said, which wasn't entirely an act. Even the small amount I'd swallowed was making me drowsy. My limbs heavy. Good, he said, and there was a note of finality in his voice. Why don't you head up to bed? I'll be up in a little while. I went upstairs and got into bed, leaving the door slightly open. I fought against the heavy pull of the drug, pinching the skin on my thigh, biting the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. Around 1130, his footsteps came up the stairs. He stood in the doorway, calling my name, just as he had before. When I didn't respond, he approached the bed and, to my horror, actually lifted one of my eyelids with his thumb to check my pupils. I forced my eyes to remain unfocused, my body limp. Satisfied, he walked away. He went to his office, made the phone calls I'd heard before, the ones about Kestrel and Thursday. Then, at midnight, he returned. He walked straight to the window and began prying up the floorboards. I was back in my nightmare. But this time, my eyes were wide open in the dark. He opened the metal box. The first thing he pulled out was a thick stack of cash. More money than I'd ever seen in one place. Then came the passports, at least 5 of them. All with his photo. All with different names. But it was the photographs that made me want to scream. He spread a collection of pictures on the floor. Photos of women. All around my age. All with dark hair like mine. Some were Candid's women leaving work, getting into cars. Then my blood froze. It was a newspaper clipping. Creased and worn. Local marketing exec missing. The headline read, the photo showed a smiling brunette named Alicia Walsh from Seattle. Marcus picked up his phone and made one last call. His voice low. That strange accent creeping in. Everything is on schedule, he said. The accounts are ready for transfer. The flight is booked for Thursday. A pause. No. There won't be any loose ends this time. I've learned from the mistakes in Seattle. Seattle, where Alicia Walsh had disappeared. He was planning to do this again. But first, he had to get rid of me. He ended the call and pulled out what looked like airline tickets. One way. Zurich. Dated for Thursday. Just 3 days away. Then, Marcus did something that confirmed my worst fears. He pulled out a small glass vial filled with a clear liquid and a syringe. He looked over at my supposedly unconscious form. He picked up one of the candid photos of me he'd taken. He ran his thumb over my face, and for a split second, his expression softened. He sighed. A strange, almost human sound of regret. You were supposed to be the last one. Clara, he whispered. You really were. Then, his face hardened. The brief moment of humanity gone. Replaced by the cold calculator. But you've served your purpose. Thursday morning. You're going to have a very unfortunate accident. I lay frozen in terror as he carefully placed the vial and syringe back in the box. After he replaced the floorboards and finally got into bed, I waited. I listened for an hour, until his breathing was deep and steady, before carefully, slowly reaching for my phone under the pillow. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I sent the text to Chloe and Miles called Detective Miles now. He has poison, planning to kill me Thursday. The box is under the floorboards by the window. The next morning felt surreal. I had to pretend everything was normal while my husband, my would-be killer, made me coffee and kissed me goodbye. I'll be working late tonight, he said as he headed for the door. Client dinner. Don't wait up for me. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, Detective Miles and 2 other officers were at my front door. Show me, Miles said. I led them upstairs and pointed. The floorboards right there. An officer knelt and carefully pried up the boards, revealing the metal box. When Miles opened it, even he looked shocked. Jesus, he muttered, pulling out the cash. There's gotta be $50. 000 here. But it was the other contents that got his attention. The fake passports, the photos, and the detailed files on each victim. Alicia Walsh from Seattle, Lisa Chen from San Francisco, Maria Rodriguez from Phoenix, Amanda Foster from Portland. And then, he held up a folder with my name on it. Inside was everything. Copies of my birth certificate, social security card, my law firm's partnership details, my bank account information, even photos of me I'd never seen before. He's been planning this for months, Miles said. Then he found it a detailed timeline, written in Marcus's handwriting. It outlined established trust, asset transfer, and, on Thursday, final cleanup. We need to catch him in the act. Detective Miles said. Clara, I know this is terrifying, but we need you to confront him tonight. We'll wire you up. We'll have officers in every room of this house. In the closets. In the attic. He will not be able to take 2 steps toward you. What if he tries to kill me early? I asked. My voice, a thready whisper. We won't let that happen. The moment he admits to any of it, or the moment he makes a threatening move, we'll be there. That evening, my home felt like a stage set for a horror movie. Plainclothes officers were hidden in my closets. In the guest room, Chloe was in the surveillance van. I was wearing a wire under my blouse that felt like a block of ice against my skin. Marcus came home around 8:00, carrying takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. I thought we could have a nice dinner together, he said, seeming more relaxed than I'd seen him in weeks. Just the 2 of us. We ate in near silence. I could barely taste the food. He kept checking his watch, a little smile playing on his lips. Marcus, I said finally, my voice surprisingly steady. I need to ask you something. Of course. Love. What is it? I took a deep breath, feeling the faint tremor in my hands. I know about the sleeping pills. The powder in my smoothies. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. For just a second. His mask slipped, and I saw something cold and dangerous flash in his eyes. I don't know what you mean, he said carefully. The bitter taste. I pushed on. The way I've been sleeping. I know you've been drugging me. He set down his fork and studied my face. Clara, you've been under a lot of stress. Maybe you should see a doctor. I already have proof, I said, sliding my phone across the table. Though it was just a prop, the real evidence was with the police. I set up a keylogger. Marcus, I recorded you. I know you've been going through my things. This time, his expression changed completely. The loving husband vanished, replaced by a stranger. You recorded me. His voice was different, harder. The faint trace of that Eastern European accent now clearly audible. I know about the fake passports. Marcus, or whatever your real name is. I know about the box under the floor. I know about Alicia Walsh. And the others. I know you're planning to kill me on Thursday. He stood up slowly, his hands clenched into fists. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Clara. Then tell me, I said, my fear warring with a desperate need to know. Tell me who you really are. He laughed. A cold, humorless sound. You want to know who I am? I'm someone who's very good at what I do. And what I do is take everything from women like you, your money, your identity, your life, and then I disappear. How many women have you killed? Enough, he said coldly. And you? You were going to be the last one. I was planning to retire after this. Zurich is beautiful in the spring. He started walking toward me, his eyes now completely dead. But now I'm just going to have to improvise. He took another step, reaching into his pocket. That's when Detective Miles's voice crackled through the hidden speakers. Nikolai Volkov. This is the Denver Police Department. The house is surrounded. Step away from Clara and put your hands where we can see them. Marcus Nikolai froze, his hand still in his pocket. Confusion flashed across his face as he looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. You set me up, he snarled, turning back to me with pure, unadulterated hatred. I protected myself, I replied, surprised that my voice, though shaking, held firm. Something you never gave Alicia Walsh or the others a chance to do. The front door burst open, and Detective Miles rushed in with 3 other officers, their guns drawn. Hands up now. Nikolai raised his hands slowly. You have nothing on me, he said calmly. I'm her husband. We were just having an argument. We have everything on you. Volkov, Miles said. The fake passports, the stolen identities, the detailed plans to murder your wife, the files from Project Kestrel, and thanks to the wire she's wearing, we just heard you confess to multiple murders. That's when he made his move. He lunged. Not at me, but toward the back door. An officer was already there. He spun and tried to run for the stairs, but Miles tackled him before he could take 2 steps. Let me go, he shouted as they handcuffed him. And for the first time, I heard his real voice, his real accent, raw and furious. It was Russian. You don't understand what you're dealing with. We understand perfectly. Miles said, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, identity theft, fraud, and we'll be adding a lot more charges once we talk to Interpol. As they led him away, he turned back to look at me, his face contorted with rage. This isn't over. Clara, people like me. We have friends. We have resources. You'll never be safe. Yes, she will, Miles said firmly, because people like you always make the same mistake. You think you're smarter than everyone else? You're just criminals. And criminals get caught. The next few hours were a blur. Emma stayed with me, holding my hand while I gave my statement. Detective Miles told me Nikolai Volkov was wanted in connection with at least 6 similar cases across the US and Europe. The women in those photographs weren't just victims, they were all dead. Killed after he had stolen their identities and drained their accounts. The trial took 8 months. The evidence was overwhelming: the keylogger data, the files in the box, the vial of poison, and my recording of his confession. The FBI found Alicia Walsh's body in a lake outside Seattle. Nikolai was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I moved to San Diego 6 months after the trial ended. I couldn't stay in that house. It took 2 years of therapy before I could sleep through the night without nightmares. It took 3 years before I could drink a smoothie again. And it took 4 years before I was ready to trust another person enough to go on a date. But I survived. I learned that I was stronger than I ever knew. Today, I work with the FBI's Victim Services Division, helping other women who've been targeted by these sophisticated, predatory scammers. I share my story, and I've helped law enforcement catch 3 other men who were using Nikolai's methods. Sometimes people ask me if I regret marrying him. I regret the pain and the fear, but I don't regret becoming the person I am now. I'm stronger, more aware, and more determined to help others than I ever was before. Nikolai was wrong about one thing. This story was over the moment those handcuffs clicked shut. He's spending the rest of his life in a concrete cell, while I'm living freely, helping other women reclaim their lives. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's a difficult one to tell, but it's so important to share. If you or anyone you know ever feels that something is wrong in your relationship, even if you can't explain why, please trust that instinct. Trust your gut. If my story resonated with you, please consider liking and sharing it. It might just reach someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell for more stories of survival and strength. What was the one clue that stood out most to you? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, and always trust yourself.